Hi everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Ins and Outs of Work. My name is Nelly, I'm your HR insider, and as always, I'm here with
Joe, the HR outsider.
Yes.
Great to be here, Nelly.
Yes, awesome, Joe.
Fantastic. So this podcast, if you haven't listened to it before, it's all about HR and the future of work, but we do things a little bit differently. As Nelly mentioned, she's the HR insider. She knows a lot about HR. I'm the HR outsider. I don't know a whole lot, but we come at it from different perspectives, and it's fantastic. You're going to love it. Today, we have a special episode, don't we, Nelly?
We do, Joe, and I'm super excited about it. So let me tell you what we're going to do. We are going to kick off our annual focus on the HR trends that we were talking about last year with a bit of retrospective.
Fantastic. So this is something we do every year at the company we work for, Talentsoft, a CG'd company. Essentially, we'll look at the HR trends for the year ahead, but we thought to start it off this year, let's do it a bit differently, and let's actually look back on what we said last year and see whether we were along the right lines, right?
Yeah, basically it's, to see whether or not we were completely wrong or completely right or something in between, Joe.
Yes, exactly. So this is going to be followed by actually a series of 3 episodes around HR trends for 2022. So you're going to want to stick around for that, but we're not going to get into too much detail on that. You're going to just have to be there. Right now we're looking back on 2021. Did this stuff actually happen? So what we're basing this conversation on, Nelly, is a video that we produced way back. I think it was around October 2020.
Something like that,
Something like that. You were part of it. I was part of it. 3 other people, sort of HR experts, were part of it, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to look back at that. We've got a few different clips we're going to pull out, and we're just going to talk through whether we think those things became a reality.
Exactly. Do you think that maybe we quickly mention what basically were our big trends or themes for 2021, right? So it was all about what we called VHUCA, and then not in the traditional sense of the word meaning volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. No, for us, VHUCA, we added an H, so it became VHUCA with an H, and what we said it was about virtuality, humility,
connection, and authenticity.
Yes.
So it's VHUCA.
Exactly. Nice
VHUCA.
One. Nice one.
And it was fantastic, if we do say so ourselves. But let's just get into this, Nelly. Okay, so how many clips have we got? We've got a series of 6 clips, I believe. 6 clips we're going to play. And the first of these is from Alexandr Pachulski. Okay, he's co-founder at Talentsoft, former chief product officer at Talentsoft. And so let's roll on the first clip.
So, if we want to avoid the worldly situation, we want not to become slave of this current situation, slave of the fact to be isolated, maybe regularly due to sanitary conditions, and we had to reinvent connections, we have to reinvent the way we work together, we have to reinvent the way we create, and so this virtuality thing will be a major challenge for 2021, but probably for the decade to come, because it's not going to stop.
Always love listening to Alexandre, Joe. What's your sense?
Yes, so much gold in that little clip from Alexandre. What I really hear coming through there, Nelly, is this sense of having to go from reacting to situations to actually kind of responding and having a strategy around it. So this piece was around virtuality, which a lot of these things we were talking about, it was during lockdowns, times when we were, maybe isolated from one another, and the sense that technology can actually play a role to connect us, but that we need to be careful about how that does that. And so what I get a sense here, as I said, is that he's talking here about a need to not just react to situations as they come up, but actually have a strategy and respond. So the difference between reacting and responding. If I think about 2021, the conversations we've had on the podcast, the things I've seen from reading and such things, I think that, we've seen obviously that debate around, do you go full remote? Do you go hybrid? Different companies have different answers to that, and I don't think there's one right answer and one wrong answer. But what I do find a little bit frightening or, disturbing, that's a bit dramatic. I don't know if those are the right words, but is the sense that, as we progress further out of COVID, hopefully, there is a sense that companies are just biding their time to kind of go back to normal. I still feel like, maybe it's just me, but I still feel like there are companies saying, yeah, hybrid for now, but probably we're going to get people back 5 days a week in the office once this is all blown over. And I think that's the wrong way to go, right? It's like you are, in that sense, you are reacting to what you're able to do. In that clip, he talks about being slaves to the situation, right? So maybe there's an opportunity, and I don't know if we saw it completely in 2021, but something maybe for 2022, is stepping above that situation and saying, okay, this is our strategy. No matter what the situation is, it's not necessarily going to affect fundamentally our reaction. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, and you mentioned it already. So for me, in this clip from Alexandre, what really struck a chord is that part about not becoming slaves of the situation, which is very much in line with what you're saying about not trying to not always be in the reactive mode, but trying to actually be ahead of things maybe and think about things before instead of always having to react. So for me, that part about not becoming slaves, that really like triggered something in my mind. And looking back at 2021 now and some of the sometimes, in my opinion, draconian measures that some of the countries have taken to try and eradicate COVID, and things that they have been also imposing on organizations as a result of that. For me, I would say what's important now is, and again, it's a bit in line with what you're saying, Joe, but like that organizations decide for themselves what works best for them as an organization, but, and that even more importantly, what works best for their employees, to simply use their common sense.
Yeah, it's very good points. So that was our first one, Neely, around virtuality, reactivity. That was from Alexandre Puchulski. We're going to move right on to the second one. And once again, it's from Alexandre Puchulski because he's got so much good stuff to say.
He does.
In that video, we'll link it in the description so you can watch the whole video. He has so many good things to say.
Yes, I'd say it's worth a watch for sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's go and have a listen to this second clip from Alexandre now.
If we say, I don't know, and if we've got to find answers will be found together, will require collaboration more than ever. We claimed that for years with the digital transformation, but now is the time, because we won't be able to find solution alone, because no one here in the humankind will have learned a solution, a pre-existing solution somewhere. So solutions have got to be invented. There will be no individual heroes anymore. It's all about bringing people together that because of their diversity, because of their differences, when you assemble them together, you got a team. And you got the ground to create new stuff. I believe that connections are the only way to create the solutions that we will need in the coming years.
Joe, so many nuggets of wisdom from this man, right?
So many, like a 6-pack of nuggets from McDonald's. Golden nuggets, not chicken nuggets.
With barbecue sauce?
Barbecue sauce, for sure, of course. So my reaction to this, if I kick us off again, Neely, is that you hear so much in this around businesses needing to potentially pivot and innovate, and COVID being kind of an excuse to innovate. And I think we saw so much of that across all sorts of industries that kind of sped up innovation and forced people to say, okay, we just need to find an answer. We need to find a solution, right? Where kind of innovation might have taken longer, because we're in our comfort zone. We had to just go for it. We had to just push the boundaries. And I found a really cool example of that. It's just a fun, cool example. It's a wine school in Philadelphia. So I was reading this article. It talked all about this. Basically a school where they teach people about wine. And obviously they had to close their doors during that first lockdown, and actually shifted to online programs and have been really successful with that. So that's just one really, really small and quite random example of someone who's gone, okay, I can't invite people into my, a business that said, okay, I can't have people physically with me. How do I pivot? How do I change and innovate? And, in that example, he's actually seen more success and grown his business through that because of that decision. So that's just something really, really cool. And what I also heard from Alex is the sense of diversity playing a huge role. So in innovation, diversity actually needing to come more and more to the fore. In 2021, I think there were further steps made. 2020 was a huge year of like public outcry around diversity and actually making positive and lasting change. And I think we've continued to make steps, and like obviously it's something that needs to continually be happening in companies and actually practicing what you preach. And I think people are not accepting that sense of like, just because you say it, like show me the money, like show me what you're actually doing in terms of DEIB today. And what I heard there from Alex is that sense of how that interacts with innovation, different perspectives coming in and actually bringing their own unique view on the world and building something much stronger. So I'd like to say, I mean, in my work experience this year, I think that's been something that happened is, different people from different backgrounds in our team being able to bring different views, and we've built something really cool as a result. But companies widely, do you see that being a thing that happened?
So for me, this clip from Alex, what really resonated with me here was, and what I found super interesting, is that he talks about that connections between human beings, real connections, are the only way to create the solutions that we need in the coming years. Now, what I find really interesting here is that I have this feeling that what we need in the workplace is exactly what we also need in society very much at the moment, because there's so much fear, there's so much polarization, there's so many people being divided over various topics, that I feel that for the society there's this really strong need for everybody to reconnect, no matter what background. So also there's this diversity element again, no matter what our walk of life has been so far. So I find this very interesting that we see exactly the same thing that is super necessary both in the world of work and in the, let's say, world outside.
Because at the end of the day, it's like, it's all one story, right? We're all humans.
Yes, exactly. And so I find it very beautiful that we see this urgency for like connection between people and understanding and like really listening to each other. Be so important today.
Brilliant, Neely. Thank you.
Now, on to a next audio clip, Joe. And this one is from Deborah Corey, and she's Chief Pay It Forward Officer at Debco HR. And she was at one of our awesome guests last year.
She was.
When we did our HR Trends video. Now, we're going to listen to an audio clip from her. And then, of course, Joe and I will share our 2 cents. All right, here's the clip.
We need to get to understand the entire person. So what are the different challenges? What are the obstacles that everybody has? Before the call, we were all making apologies. Okay, I've got a dog sleeping over there. I've got a cat over here. I've got a husband working upstairs. And I think the more that we collectively, not just leaders in HR, take the time to get to know each other and support each other, I think the better that we'll be able to overcome exactly what you've spoken about. But that change needs to happen.
So Neely, this little clip from Deborah, what is your first reaction to that?
This, again, I think, Joe, is a very interesting one, because Deborah is talking about how important it is to take the time to know each other, know the people that we're working with, and to support each other and able to overcome the challenges that every one of us has had last year, but still has this year. Now, from the way I'm looking at it, so 2021, I think so many of us thought that 2021 would be so much easier than 2020 because so many had lockdowns all over 2020, sometimes also in 2021. And then I think many people thought, okay, so yes, we've got the vaccine, let's get to jab everyone, and then we're going to be this is going to be all over before the end of 2021. And now we see so many maybe even harder challenges, because some people are genuinely afraid of going back to the office, even if they have been vaccinated and even if everybody in the workplace has been. So there's this fear of going back to the office. But there's also people that can have very strong diverging opinions on whether or not they want, for instance, to get the vaccine. So I think in many ways, 2021 is so much tougher on us. And so then when I look back at, when I hear what Deborah was talking about, so really, taking the time to listen to your coworker and to try to put yourself in their shoes and try to understand them, I think that has become even more important this year than it was last. But I'm not sure what you're thinking about.
No, I think it's so true. Just to react on what you were saying is like, I think at the end of 2020 there was this sense of like, oh, thank goodness 2020 is over. But you know, it's all bled into 2021, and that's what happens in life. And like you said, I think there's kind of this long tail of these consequences of what happened in COVID, and like, you know, vaccines and different things. Mental health, I think you touched on there, is like there's gonna be repercussions for a long time, and that touches on a lot of how HR needs to work and needs to you know, foster connections between people and belonging and look after the people that are in their care, in a sense, more than just being employees. But really what I got out of this clip from Deborah was the sense of like, yeah, I think we just talked about it, understanding people better and not treating people as robots but as kind of humans, and getting a sense, yes, they work for me 8, 9, 10 hours a day, but then they go home and they have their life, and recognizing that and being understanding about that. And you know, even coming back to a sense of like, do you even know the people do you even really know the people you work with? And that's been a cool experience this year at where we work at Talentsoft, is this sense of like, we through the lockdown, someone had the idea of doing this like PowerPoint slide every week where someone would introduce themselves, fill out some funny answers to different questions, and it's a very, very simple thing, but you just got a sense of like, okay, this person is kind of a 360 degree person, like they're a well-rounded person, like they're not just that person who does, I don't know,
content
or paid social or whatever it is, but they have like a life outside of work. And understanding that, I think, gives you a sense of how you can work better with them. And we also did this year, like, you know, there's so many of these different personality tests and different things around colors and all sorts of different things, but I found that really useful as well personally, just understanding my co-workers and my teammates, like how they view the world and how they're coming at different challenges, and you know, what is important to them. And I think all those kinds of things, doing more and more of them, can only help us more and more with what we're going through and into 2022.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Okay, the fourth one, we're going back to Alex Bachulski because he had more great things to say, guys. He wasn't done, and we're going to listen to this clip.
And so if you encourage people to try things, even if they fail, but retry as far as they find a solution, you could really change the game, because it won't be only words. You can force change, because what will be recognized, it's risk. It's not security.
So reaction to this, Neely, is basically a short one. I'm not too sure, in my experience, if we made progress towards allowing people to fail. I'd love to get an example or hear from someone who has radically changed this, but in my experience, there is still a sense of, you know, it's not good to fail. And I think what Alex is saying here is that if we are to go further and actually come up with new innovation and make big differences, practically, it's going to require us to, you know, even in HR or as managers, kind of enable people to push the boat out and fail at times. But I guess what I'm saying is I'm not sure if that's happened in 2021. What would you think?
Me neither, Joe. I'm not sure. What I am thinking here, though, as I heard you talk, is maybe a bit of a challenge for everyone listening in this regard. Well, what could be a good place to start, I think, is that let's start by allowing ourselves to fail. Let's start by consciously thinking if, you know, we make a mistake or if something didn't turn out the way we hoped it would, by being kinder to ourselves and by telling ourselves, okay, that's fine, because what did I learn from this? Let's maybe start, you know, where we can, and that's, I think, individually on our own level. Let's start there when we make mistakes at work.
Yeah. Are you saying I'm starting with the man in the mirror? Michael Jackson?
Yes.
Yeah, basically. But women, person.
The person in the mirror. The human being in the mirror.
I'm starting with the human being in the mirror.
Yes.
That's really good, Neely.
Thanks.
I didn't even think of that before, but it's so true. Like, instead of relying on the company or someone up top to say, it's okay to fail now, you know, as a manager or as a person, are you okay to fail? And then that's going to filter down to other people.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's silly failures, but there's also good failures where you're trying new things.
I think that if we cannot allow ourselves to fail, how can we then really allow others to feel, or not allow, but how can we then, really spread this mindset of it's okay to fail. So I feel like this might need to start with ourselves.
Yeah, so good. Okay, we're going to move on to the fifth one, and it's a very special person who did this one. It's actually you, Neely. This clip is from you, and let's listen to what you had to say.
Neely, can you name one HR practice that you feel should stop straight away?
Yes, for me, that would be performance management done the old way. And by the old way, I mean having a once a year 15 or 20-minute conversation with your manager, and that being it. For me, that's something that we should have stopped yesterday, if possible.
So just phenomenal wisdom there from you, Neely. Just unbelievable. I just blown away. Even every time listening to that one, again, it's amazing. What I really took out of this, and I so agree, by the way, like performance reviews suck. Who likes doing performance reviews?
And you're a manager yourself.
I'm a manager. On the manager side, on the employee side, no one really likes it.
It's a lose-lose.
It's a lose-lose. We have seen, different things start to change, I think, in this space. A lot of companies thinking through how they're actually going to approach performance reviews. Season 2, if you listen to it, we did these short episodes. One of them was around performance reviews. And we really touched on a really cool story. I think it was from Facebook around how they do it. And their whole goal around performance reviews was really to make sure that there were no surprises. And I think that's really cool. It's like the big issue with, I think, performance reviews a lot of time is that you wait 3-4 months to give feedback on something that happened a long time ago. And it's like, okay, why can't we have this more continuous kind of feedback? That brings me to something we do at TalentSoft, a CG'd company, is continuous conversation. So it's a little bit of a plug here, but I think it's a really good example of how we're actually thinking through differently how to do performance reviews. Continuous conversation is essentially a part of our product, a solution that we offer around how to do performance reviews differently. And it is exactly that, a continuous conversation throughout the year with your manager around your goals. And it really just removes that need for like those 2 big meetings a year, those 2 big scary meetings, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like you said, it's a continuous conversation around your goals, but also around your aspirations. Where do you want to go? Your expectations as well. So pretty much anything that is important, I think, to keep people happy and engaged in their job. So that was nicely said, Joe. Thanks. So this is kind of weird for me because now I need to react to my own.
To yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I'm reacting to myself, which is I think a first for me, at least on the podcast for sure. Now, so get rid of performance reviews done the old way. I think in some organizations, they are trying to do things differently, which is awesome. There's an example from I know some companies who actually, they assess performance, for instance, against their company values or partially against their company values. So how does that look? They have, for instance, 50% of performance is being assessed against the what. So, what are your targets and your goals? And then there's the 50% that's being assessed against the how. So how are you working? How are you living the company values? I think that's an interesting one. It's also very interesting, I think, Joe, that way to try and really get those company values a lot living and make sure that people are living them. So I do think that there's some very cool, interesting things happening there, but overall, I feel we still have a very long way to go, and we are nowhere near of, getting rid of the performance reviews done the old way.
Yeah, there you go. So I think you're getting a bit of a sense here from these 2021 HR trends that they were pretty ambitious for them to all happen in 2021. I think again and again we're saying we've still got a wee way to go on this, and that's fine. It's good to be ambitious, but there was some things at least done in 2021. What I'm hearing. Okay, we're on to our final one here, Neely. And once again, it's from Alex Pachulski. He's really the star of today's episode, I guess.
I guess he is, yeah.
Yeah. And so let's have a listen to this one.
It's all about alignment. Being aligned between your personal ambitions and the professional opportunities you will be able to grab. And why this alignment is more important than ever, because all the efforts, all the energy that we are going to have to put to develop new skills, to grab new opportunities, occupy new jobs, and face all the problems we are facing right now, will require, once again, 100% of your energy, and you got to be aligned, and you won't be able to do all this effort if you're not genuinely interested into the opportunities.
The keywords I pull out of this one nearly are really around like energy and kind of like opportunities. He repeats that a couple of times. I think energy is a big one, because if you've lived through the last couple of years, it's you'll know that energy has been sapped a lot of times at work, and being stuck in your little apartment or wherever you've had to work from, it has been tough at times to have energy and have that drive to actually produce good work and work hard and, if I'm honest, really, I don't know, push yourself, I guess. So what I'm hearing from him is this sense of like, in the years to come and in 2021, it was important to really figure out how to give people energy or provide the right circumstances for them to have energy, to be passionate about the work they're doing. And if I'm honest, in 2021, I don't think that was done well. One case in point of that would be the Great Resignation, this not so little trend that sort of took place in 2021. And you probably heard all about it. You've heard everyone talking about it. If you haven't heard about it, essentially it's kind of a movement that came about from a bunch of different studies showing that somewhere up to around 40% of the global workforce, white-collar workforce, was looking at changing jobs or leaving their employer in 2021. So that's absolutely massive and gives you a sense of how, people's mindsets and kind of that energy being lacking in a lot of senses. I think that's a big driver to, this lack of purpose behind people's jobs. And I think what Alex is saying, if I just sum it all up, is if we are to make a big difference, if we are to solve a lot of problems in the world, we're going to need people who have a lot of energy, who have a lot of purpose, who have a lot of drive to and passion to solve those problems.
Yes. And I mean, I don't want to give too much away, but, talking about purpose, I do think that if this is something that resonates with you and that you believe that will be super important, then you should definitely stay tuned for our HR Trends for 2022. Yes. Now, for me, this audio snippet from Alex, Joe, yes, I think it's one of the reasons for the Great Resignation. I think it's very true what you said about organizations not necessarily this year having managed to energize people and to create that sense of opportunity and belonging and purpose. Because I think on the one hand, a lot of organizations were probably still kind of waiting for things to go back to normal. And on the other hand, they were probably still trying to deal with the challenges that were in front of them in this reaction mode that we talked about earlier. So yes, I think that's one thing. I do think that this is also driven by something else, especially when we look at the younger generations of workers, so like the younger millennials and Generation Z, who's also now definitely entered the workforce. I think what we see there is that they really want a sense of purpose in what they're doing. So I think that is related to what Alex is saying, and it emphasizes the importance of that. I mean, the other day I was listening to a podcast, very interesting one, and they were talking about research that showed that as much as 40% of people consider their job, bear with me, useless.
Wow.
I mean, if you consider your job useless, then for sure there's not going to be a sense of belonging. For sure you're not going to feel good about yourself, about going to work every single day.
And you're probably not going to do good work.
No.
Really?
No.
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents here.
Wow. Amazing, Neely. So that was our quick trip through 6 clips from our 2021 HR Trends, and we hope you enjoyed it. Did you have any final thoughts, Neely?
I enjoyed this. I hope our listeners did too.
Fantastic. I hope you did as well. And do stick around, because in the coming days, it's a matter of days before we will be launching our 2022 HR Trends. We'll have a series of 3 episodes. So what you're gonna want to do is hit subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. If you're watching on YouTube even, hit subscribe. Make sure you get notifications so that you don't miss those 2022 episodes where we're going to paint a really awesome picture of what to expect in 2022 with some really great experts, Neely.
Yes, absolutely. Stay tuned. Thank you very much for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, as Joe said, if you haven't done so yet. Like this episode, leave a review if you're on Apple Podcasts, and then we'll see you very soon again for a new episode of The Ins and Outs of Work. Bye.
Bye.